Is your business great because of how you run your people, or are your people great because of how you run your business? I like option two. How about you? We're going to talk about that next. Joe Giovanini is our guest on Purpose Under Pressure. Well, the heat is on. Let's get cooking. This is Purpose Under Pressure. My name's Brian, and welcome to the show. This is a podcast about developing sales and leadership success on purpose. It's brought to you by the Ruby Group, actionable strategies for today's toughest business challenges. And if you're a business out there, you know how challenging it can be, not just to get the job done, but more on purpose, to get the job done right. How do your people represent you? How do your people represent each other? Are they bringing in the right customers that represent your business well? See, that's growing a business on purpose. And that's what the Ruby Group is all about. You will find them in Akron and Columbus, Ohio, Jacksonville, Florida. They're also in Capital Region, New York. And you'll find them online at rubygroup.sandler.com. So I hope that you will do that. If you're back for this show, we appreciate it. And we hope that you won't forget to like us, follow us, subscribe, tell a friend, tell your mom, I like to say. Anybody that needs to know about this show, if they don't know about it, they can't listen. And if this show helps you, or it inspires you, or it motivates you, then we want to do that for other people too. So go ahead and click those buttons because we've all got pressure. So let's get cooking. One thing I do love to do on this show is talk with Sandler trainers. You've seen me do that before. We've had interviews with just about every trainer from Sandler through the Ruby Group. And those shows are amazing. If you haven't had a chance, go back and find one with Mike Jones or Ken Guest or Jordan or any of those folks, because they get it. The next thing I love to do is talk to Sandler trained leaders in the business community, because they don't just get it, they are living it. And we're going to do that today. Joe Giovanini is the president at Mag Resources. He's a national leader, and his company is a national leader in the window treatment industry, providing sun control solutions for commercial applications all across the country. One of the greatest things about this job is that you get to talk to people that do things that you didn't even know were a thing. You don't even know that's a business. Okay, great. Joe, welcome to Purpose Under Pressure.
Thank you, Brian. How you doing?
I'm really great, and I'm glad you're here, and I'm interested. What is Mag Resources, and what are you doing there?
Oh, we're a small family business. Been around for close to 20 years now. Like you said, window treatments, right? Commercial. It's a small little niche, but oftentimes I think those are kind of the best businesses. So we started out small, like I said, about 17 years ago, over my father's basement. My father and I, we grew up in this industry, or at least I did. So he worked with a previous company. He actually worked with Ken Guest prior to this.
Okay.
So they know each other fairly well. Same
Yeah.
kind of industry. 2008 hit. All that turmoil ended up with their company going under. I was in school at the time, and we kind of picked up where we left off with our summer trips and summer installs, and decided to try to make a business out of that. So here we are, 17 years later. It's a lot of ups, a lot of downs,
Yeah.
but we're still here.
Yeah. And what drives you? What made you want to stay in the family business and do the things that you had started to do 17 years ago?
Well, that's a good question. It's funny because if you asked me that 17 years ago, I used to tell my father I would never have anything to do with this business. I used
Yeah,
to go
most people are like that in young families and things. Yeah.
And but when, like I said, when 2008 hit, um, caught a lot of people on their heels. My father had a house payment, we had bills, and so our business was kind of born out of necessity, right? We kind of picked up the pieces, put them together just because we had to. And I'm kind of glad I did, because it kind of channeled me and gave me a good direction. I always wanted, at the time I was in school, in the entrepreneur program. That was kind of my dream, to start a business and have my own business. At the time, I couldn't have really told you in what. But having this was good, and it gave me a channel and a direction. And it didn't take long to realize that you can replace the widget for any other widget. Business is more so about people.
Yeah.
And I think that's really has, over the years, become my driving factor and my motivating factor that gets me out of bed, makes me excited to come to work, is building teams, working with teams to solve problems. I love the challenge in that. I like seeking out different challenges. We're always looking at the business and ways that we can improve the ways we're delivering our services and products to our customers, ways that we can improve our culture and environment internally, so that our people have the best tools and resources that they need to be able to go out and meet the demands of the market. So, those are the things that excite me. Um, like I said, I'm glad that happened because at the time you're kind of looking for the right business, and I don't know. It's not necessarily that window treatments excite me and are super exciting. That's not necessarily the case. It's really more so um, the challenges and the problems around it, and forming teams, and that's true of any business.
Yeah, and that's what I was wondering too, because I don't mean any disrespect. I love the broadcasting industry, but that doesn't mean it's for everybody. And
Right.
there's some people that probably love the science perhaps of window treatment or whatever. But we don't all, Steve Jobs said, find your passion and do that. But that's not fair for most people. Like if I love to paint, it's hard to be a professional artist, or if I love to sing and I can't, it's
Yeah.
hard to do that. So how do you get excited? What and let me ask you it this way. What's most exciting for you? Is it to innovate and create new solutions for your customers, or is it to find customers that match your solutions? Either way, you want to take care of them. Either way, you're trying to make a really solid fit. But when you're talking about building the business, what comes first? Is it your product or is it the customers? Who drives that?
For me personally, I try to focus on three different things day in and day out. And I stress this to a lot of people here. And I think it's important when you're building a business, and it's also important. There's different phases in a business. There's the initial, we're trying to get this up off the ground, and different things matter at that point than they do when you're X amount of years later and you're looking at trying to scale a business. Right?
Yeah.
Those are two different things. But where we're at right now in the business, we're trying to scale the business. Now we already have something that's off the ground, and we have a nationwide reach, and so on and so forth. It's really um, people, products, and processes, and it's really focusing on making sure that more than anything, we have processes in place and we have structure in place, right? And that's also why I love the Sandler system, because it's a system and it's a structure,
Hmm.
and we put that in place for our salespeople. And if you don't have those things in place, I tell the team all the time, right? When we first started out the business, and it's me and my dad in the basement, and we made our first hire, which is actually my mom. She was our first project manager. We got her out of the she was working in a factory, and we
Awesome.
got her out of there. She made her our project manager. It's very easy. I don't want to say it's easy, but it's getting to your first $1 million is incredibly difficult. But you have a long reach in the business, right?
Yeah.
You and your partner, you are touching on every part of the business. It's easy to give good service in the beginning because it's you and your partner, and your values are most likely aligned,
Yeah.
and you have a long reach. As you grow, it gets harder to touch on every part of the business. And so if you don't have processes in place, you kind of leave it up to each individual, to um, it kind of runs through their filter instead of your filter and what you think is important. And so those processes become more and more important over time. So you can try to replicate what made you successful early, and kind of keep that as time goes on, and you start to dilute the business with adding more people to it. So processes are a huge, huge part of it.
Hmm.
And I'm looking at that on all parts of the business all the time. How are we doing things? Consistency, right? So trying to provide a consistent buying experience for the customers, a consistent um, internally trying to create consistency. And the other part of it is the people and the products, which also there's processes involved with that. How you're hiring, how you're onboarding.
Yeah.
Um, the products, are your products scalable? Do we have processes in place for as you grow and you start to have returns and customer service issues and warranty and stuff like that? So processes across the board. Getting the people side of it is probably more important than anything, because you can have all the right processes in place, but if you don't have the right people in the right seats,
Yeah.
you're doomed.
Boy, that's for sure.
So yeah, so I mean, that's my long-winded answer of trying to of to your question. But people, products, and processes, that's where I would probably focus the majority of my time.
And so you're scaling. Have you
Well,
scaled and you're
trying to.
scaling? Is that a good? And yeah, you're trying to. We're all, and you wonder when that's ever going to stop. Let's talk to someone out there that's also scaling. What what are the daily challenges, the things to look for? Because scaling can be really scary. You can get
Yeah,
to a spot where there's no turning back. You went the wrong way. You did, and it can really mess things up. It can change processes, and then you change the process the wrong way, and it breaks everything. I mean, scaling is hard.
it is.
What have you
It's
found to
different.
be the most difficult thing, or maybe the most important thing to watch as you scale to make sure you're scaling properly?
Um, the people side of it.
Yeah.
If you have good people, and it's easy, and that to me, at least for me personally, has been the most challenging part of the business. Is early on, I struggled with. Well, I think it's like anything else. You live and you learn, and you make enough mistakes, and there's nothing more costlier than a wrong hire. And when you make enough of them, it's. I wish I could say I was great at that all along, but that wasn't the case. We've made some mistakes, and we're left with a group. We have a tremendous team right now. A lot of these people have been with me almost since the beginning, and we've weeded out some people that weren't necessarily just weren't great fits for us and how we do things. It's not that they weren't good people and they weren't good employees. They just didn't fit our culture, and that's the biggest struggle. Because if you have the right people in the right seats, they're motivated. They see they have a vision that they can go after. They have the tools and resources that they need to be able to do their job. Those people they'll take you where you need to go. So that's the biggest thing I look after is the people, the culture, the environment. Trying to create an environment where we have a bunch of leaders here who look at it as they have ownership in things,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? And then I give them the freedom and the flexibility and the framework in order in which to make decisions and do things, and they push the ball ahead of themselves. So they don't need me.
Yeah,
So now for the first, I don't want to say for the first time, it's been like this for a while now, but you really don't have a business until it can operate without you being there.
that's right. That's right.
And
You have a
now,
job.
I
You have a
yeah,
job. You don't have a business. Yeah.
yeah, and that's what I kind of tell people the same thing. So, um, and now we do have that. So we have scaled to the point where we have the teams and the processes in place and systems in place and decision making frameworks in place for people to kind of do what they have to do, and also really people and our core values go hand in hand with that, which a lot of people talk about, and I think it's kind of something that's just like a buzzword sometimes, and people might post it up on their walls in their offices or in their handbook, but we really live by them.
Mhm.
And we spend a lot of money and resources to try to reinforce those, and I think that's just as important because your people that you're hiring need a framework
Yeah.
and a filter in which to make decisions. So I think how I spend the majority of my time is the people side and finding ways to reinforce those values, share DNA with
Yeah.
the team.
Yeah. Making sure that the message and the morals and the convictions and the values of your company and your family get out and get
Yes.
out the right way, that it's living through each of the people there. And so you're doing all the right things. You've got Sandler helping your sales team present in a process and things. You've got processes in production. You've got processes with people. Tell me about a time. This is purpose under pressure. You're doing all the right things on purpose. Tell me about a time though when maybe during scale or maybe during getting the right people on board where it didn't go right. You made the wrong decision. The process failed you. Something happened that caused a real upset and you had to figure it out. Give me that story if you don't mind.
Well, okay, that's a good question. What my mind immediately kind of goes back to, and I'll preface this little story by just saying, I was lucky and fortunate enough, and I also think this is an important part of scaling a business is to surround yourself with people that are smarter than you,
Mm-hmm.
who can cover your blind spots,
Yep.
and have some humility and humble yourself enough to know that, be smart enough to know that you don't know everything. And I was really fortunate enough early on to have a mentor who was actually a family friend. It was my brother's basketball coach, and he just happened to be an accountant, and he was a very successful guy, and he had retired early in life, and he was basically just coaching them, and he decided to take us on as a client early on because we
Mm.
couldn't afford to pay an actual accountant, and he just so happened to love the barbecue and chicken from where we're from here, and we kind of paid him barbecue and chicken and hot sauce, hot rice
Nice.
for a few years. But he used to always tell me, and almost everything he said was right, and I try to live by. But one thing that me and him disagreed pretty passionately on was he just has more of an old school mentality, and he used to see the money and the resources that we would spend on trying to build this culture. And in the beginning, we weren't successful with it. You know, like I said, we had some bad hires and made some mistakes. And he would always kind of stress to me, you know, why I don't know why you spend the money and the time on these things, then and it's a waste of time and money and these same people that you're investing in, you know, he would say they're not going to take a pay cut for you if anything were ever happen,
Oh, I
right?
see. Okay.
And
Okay.
and I just didn't agree with that. You know, I really strongly in my heart disagreed with that. I felt like people are your biggest resources, and you invest in them, and it's never a bad investment.
Yeah.
But you fast forward now, or rewind from this point, but fast forward from that conversation to time that happened in COVID, right? And we had some people on the staff, and everybody was a lot of stress and pressure at that time, and businesses were shut down, and we were trying to bring people back, and some people were hesitant to come back. They were better off taking some of the benefits that they had, and these are the same people that you were investing in, and you know, it just kind of painted a little bit of a picture to make you understand that okay, maybe in some ways you couldn't help but think maybe in some ways he was right
Maybe he
about
was
some of these
right.
things,
Yeah.
you know.
Right.
And so it was easy to let those situations kind of jade you a little bit and make you think, you know, maybe start to second guess your approach on some things. But again, we're family business, family values. It just wasn't. And even if I wanted to, I don't think I could. It's just not my DNA, you know?
To cut back on those investments that you were making. So you were
Yeah.
feeling like, man, maybe I shouldn't have spent this money to create this culture. These people are, a couple of them are still taking the benefit. They're leaving me high and dry, just like my mentor told me. And yet there was
Yeah.
a part of you that said, no, this is the right way to do it.
Everyone in the organization needs to know how to sell. Sales is the strength of any company. Whether or not you're in marketing, operations, or even finance, everyone has a strong shared accountability towards driving top-line revenue. Whether or not you're client-facing or talking over the phone, you're able to build a stronger level of rapport with the clients. Everyone in the organization shares that responsibility to know how to sell.
And yet there was
Yeah.
a part of you that said, no, this is the right way to do it.
We stuck it through. And also, you know, when you in that same token, you look around the office and you see all these people that we're still with you
Yeah.
and we're making sacrifice and so that's kind of what we hung our hope on is it's like, you know, it's hard to kind of close the door on that when at the same yes, this is happening and it's creating a lot of pressures on you and the rest of the team, and it was putting us through some hardships, but you look around you and it's easy to focus on the negative, but sometimes you have to step back and just think of the things that you are great, you know, have a little bit of gratitude for and rebalance yourself. A lot of times these things are just perspective. So just reshifting your perspective, and that's easy to do when, again, you know, like I'm blessed to have the team I have now. I have people, Crystal and Shelby's and Morgan. I mean, I have people that have been with me since the beginning. And when you look at them and you look at the investments you've made in them and what the outcome has been and how successful it's been, it was made it easier to go back to the formula that we, you know, our original formula. So that was helpful to have that.
Joe, I'm really glad you shared that story with me. And I want to ask one deeper question then, because I'm getting the feeling that you're mostly, at least as much interested in your people as you are in the business, which is paying dividends across the line. So, some people are like, all business, I'm going to get the right people to help me do my business. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm getting the feeling that you're just creating opportunities for people to grow and do better, which is helping your business. It's just the other way of the cycle. Can you give me an example, like maybe even a personal example of someone, you don't have to name names, but where that investment in that person paid off for them, which is paying off for you, but it made them maybe a better leader, a better person, a better father, a better mother, whatever it might be. Can you give me that example? I think that matters to you, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah, well, I mean, so I think it's hard to expect somebody to come into the office and perform at a high level if their personal life is not in order or they're having issues there, and vice versa. And so, part of our process every year is not just focused solely on the business and how can we help you be better at whatever your role is. We spend an equal amount of time trying to make sure that there's a balance there with how they're thinking and what their focus is on, and making sure that, every year, right, part of our review process, we try to have, and it's not necessarily something that we use as something to gauge their performance here or their pay or anything. It's just something that we do that we think is worth, like I said, trying to strike a balance. But we do a one page personal plan. So it's really a breakdown of not just what your goals are at work, but right, personal life, your finances, your relationships,
Mhm.
setting some goals outside of the office. And we've had a couple people in here who I think um, have come from some challenging circumstances, family wise and just relationship wise. It's created a lot of, I think, tremendous amount of pressure on them outside of here. And I think we've even, and in the past, we've had people who have gravitated towards work and dug their self in at work, their heels in at work, and buried themselves at work to kind of forget about their personal life,
Mhm.
which I think in some instances, in some businesses would probably be welcomed, right? Because they're like, oh, I got people who want to work 16 hours a day. And it's not that I balk at that, but
Right.
I ask, well, what is the motivation for doing that, right? If the motivation is right and it's like, hey, everything's happy and I'm just driven, this is what, then that's great.
Yeah.
But if the motivation is wrong and it's like, hey, I'm just doing this to kind of avoid other issues in my life, that's not sustainable,
Nope.
you know. And so I think we have just as much of an equal focus on people's personal success to make sure that they're happy, which I don't like using that word really, but happy
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
fulfilled. Fulfilled is probably a better word. They have some fulfillment in their personal life, and I think that I've seen it that translates into the work environment, and these people
Yeah.
come in more. Okay, I'll say it again, happier and
Yeah.
more, and that makes them more productive, better team members, and ultimately the work that they're doing is probably better. So, yeah, I've seen that time and time again. Honestly,
There was a book I read a long time ago, and I think it was called The Dream Maker. If I'm not mistaken, it was called The Dream Maker. But it was about a company. I think it was about a company that. Well, no, that's not true. It was about a person. It was a kind of a fictional sales book. Anyway, it was about a person whose job it was to make the employees of that company to make their dreams come true, to help their personal dreams,
yeah,
not the company's dreams, but to help them. If someone wanted to buy a house, if someone wanted to,
yeah,
win a marathon, if some whatever their dream was that person's job to make their dreams come true, to make them feel like they could do it. And that helped the business because it created a better culture, created a better employee, it created a
yeah.
better person on the other side. It's like the whole purpose of that business was to develop people. And it sounds like you're doing that. And I think that's pretty cool.
Well, I think one thing, when like I mentioned in the beginning, when you first start a business, it's easy to have a long reach. And also, it's not reasonable to expect anybody to care about your business as much as you care about your business.
That's
It's
right.
your business. But the closest you can get to that is when people have a sense of ownership of things. They feel like they have a voice. And also, it's not just making it feel like that. In all reality, your business is better when other people have a voice and they can cover your blind spots. I tell people all the time, when we go through our processes and we're trying to improve things, 95% of all of our improvements that we've made that have stuck, that have really what have been worked out well, come from the bottom up, not the top down. It doesn't come from me in here saying, hey, this is what we should do. I'm not really doing it day to day anymore. It's not really for me to say. That's I can tell you 15 years ago how we did it and what was worked best then. But that's every year that you're doubling in size or you're growing at a quick rate. What works at 1 million doesn't work at 5 million,
Well, that's for
and
sure.
5 million at 10 million, and so forth. So you have to be kind of constantly analyzing that. And so when people feel like they have a voice in that system and they have ownership of processes, it's as close as you can get to making them feel like an owner, and they have pride in it and they care. And so, what's better, one owner and 10 and 15, 20, 25 people are working for that person, or 15, 20, 25 owners who all own a part of the business and they're gonna push the ball forward.
That's so cool. So it feels like you've got things set right. It feels like you've built the culture. You've got 17 years under your belt. You're doing things and you're scaling. There's still going to be pressure every single day, and I'm interested in the future for you, Joe. What's next? What's the pressure that you can see on the horizon that's going to want to try to push you back a little bit away from what you're trying to do? What keeps you up at night a little bit?
Oh man, that's a good question, Brian. I mean,
That's
we
when
have
I
so
get
many.
the big bucks, Joe. I
Yeah.
ask the good questions.
Well, we have so many, goals that we have for the business. I mean, we just came, so we just got back from Orlando. We take the team down there to do our strategic planning, get out of the office, and we come out of here. So it's like right now, I have so many things on my mind. We've come out of there, so many ideas. Um, what keeps me up at night? I don't know if anything necessarily keeps me up at night from a bad perspective. To be honest, if I could just not sleep and continue the work, it's more of an excitement
It's
of
more the opportunities that are
yeah,
out there.
yeah. I think
Interesting. So the pressures are the opportunities and trying to reach them all.
the
And
pressures
yeah,
are how can we take advantage of, when we come out of these meetings, it's like a Rubik's cube, and that's how I try to look at the business, and that's how I try to frame it for the people that are here, right? Because when we come out of the strategy planning, it's like there's a real big focus on all the negative, and there's so much positive that's going on, but we have to focus on the negative to fix it in order to grow the business. And I look at it as like a Rubik's cube. Growing a business is just a series of challenges and problems and issues that you face, and you have to figure out how to solve this to go to the next level. And so to me, the pressures come from, can we solve those problems in the timeline that we set? We know these are obstacles to our growth. And so, and there's always 100 projects. There's always 100 things that you can think of that can be improved, and the list never stops.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so that creates a lot of pressure, and it's in and of itself is just the workload, required that that's going to take in order to get where you want to be.
That's
So
real, and it feels like we've come full circle because we talked about processes and how you've got processes in place. And I know for a fact and from experience that processes can be a little scary too, because if you build a really good process, you got an easy way to get the right people. It's hard to scale past that process without breaking it. Like some people, when everything's just really going well, the business is flowing, we've got a process, everything is clockwork. Well, yeah, but what about tomorrow? And that process no longer, what do you want to accomplish that process doesn't allow you to accomplish? What kind of thing can you see, that opportunity that you haven't built a process for? And I think
yes,
sometimes we can get comfortable in our successful business, in our well-run, well-oiled machine, and we miss the opportunities. It doesn't have to
uh,
be a bad pressure. It can be an opportunity that we missed. And boy, what a terrible thing that might be.
yeah, no, you're 100% right. And words of wisdom from Nick, my old mentor. He was the one who kind of embed that in me earlier. As when we started out, first few years were rough, getting up off our feet, and then after that, we started experiencing some growth. And he used to kind of embed that in me, and you have to constantly be looking at everything you're doing and how you're doing it. And when you engage the team in that process, and you have 30 other sets of eyeballs who are looking at how things are doing,
Yeah.
when something breaks or something stops working, having those processes is one thing, but just as importantly is carving out paths in the company, avenues for people to communicate these types of things, systems to be able to collect that feedback. So, when people see that it's broke, they're going to let you know about it. And it's like, what was working yesterday that's not working today.
Yeah.
And that happens a lot. And you have to be willing to, and we are willing to, we'll get all the way through. We'll put something in place. And then if in a year or two it's not working, we're going to rip it back apart, and we're going to get it until it's right, So
Yeah.
creating a culture
Love it.
that embodies that mindset, I think, is extremely important as you scale.
Joe, in case there's anyone out there that needs window treatment, we're going to talk about that in just a little bit. But if they just want to reach out to you, and maybe you've said something that inspires them, I have a feeling you're the kind of guy that wouldn't mind helping somebody out of a jam if you could. So how would they find you if they needed to talk to you about anything related to business?
I'm on LinkedIn.
Good.
Also, great way, just email. I'm pretty responsive on email. It's a long one. You want me to give it out there, Brent?
Go ahead, and I'll put it in the show notes too. But yeah, go ahead.
J. Giovanini, GIO, V as in Victor, ANINI,
Yeah.
at mag, M as in Michael, G as in George, resources.net.
Great. And the website for MAG is?
magresources.net.
Perfect. So here's the cool thing, folks. I want you to realize Joe and I just we've been on the phone here for a half an hour. We didn't talk about window treatments at all. And I think that's pretty cool because business is business is business. We sell a lot of things, whether I sell a widget and you sell a plug and she sells a whatever.
Yep.
How do we treat people? How do we treat our own people? How do we treat the people that are buying from us, that are working with us? How do we treat our families? Especially in a family business? That's really what matters. And I think, Joe, if you get that right, the rest of it is kind of just takes care of itself, doesn't it?
It definitely helps. I think that's the biggest component to it. If you can get that right, I think you get momentum. You can know you got the wind at your back at that point for sure.
Joe, you told me before the show starts that you don't talk much, and I'm not sure what's going to happen here. But you know what? That came out really well. What do you think? See, you were able to help, I think, a lot of people that might be scaling and trying to figure out what's wrong. Maybe they can see what's right. I think I'm really glad that you shared that.
Well, thank you, Brian. I appreciate it. You got me out of my comfort zone. I tell everybody here all the time, that's where all your growth happens, out of your comfort zone. And then they look at me and they're like, you're the same guy that doesn't want to give the Christmas speech, So I'm like, yeah, you're right. I probably should.
That's the easiest thing to tell someone else is to get out of your comfort zone while we sit back. We're all the same. We've all got the same problem. We've all got that same bubble, Joe. That's Joe Giovanini. I'm so glad he was a guest with us. Thank you very much, Joe, for being on the Purpose Under Pressure podcast.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. I appreciate you having me on.
Folks, this is Purpose Under Pressure. When you've got purpose, you know you're going to have pressure. That's just the way it goes. And I'm glad that you were able to be a part of this show, and I'm glad you're able to listen. And I'm really glad for our sponsors. It is Ruby Group, Sandler by the Ruby Group, and they have been helping us to kind of bring this show to you for, going on 4 years now. So if you're a sales professional trying to do your job well and to do your job right on purpose and under pressure, this podcast is for you. It airs multiple times a week, and all past episodes can be found at brianmediastrategies.com or wherever you watch your favorite shows. And it's brought to you by the Ruby Group, actionable strategies for today's toughest business challenges. Thank you for being here. We do this every week, and we will see you next time on Purpose